furtive image in the background. What could that be? Always being watched from the spirit world, reminded of their connection, reminded of where they came from and the kind of role they're going to play as women in society. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the Baga villages, sometimes Dumba even comes out and dances at night. Always reminding that the women, everything that comes from the spirit world, and it's everything that's essential for daily life in Baga society. Thank you.
And Manchu Bambura is the son of Mapayong, one of the best Demba carvers in the Baga country. He was chosen from a young age by his father to carry on his sculptural work, Demba, and today he is recognized as the best. He has created masks for Katako, Mare, Bigori, Tifinda villages, and for external clients, originally of Demba. And we met Salifu Sama Kamara, who actually is carving Demba for other village. In the performance was made by Alphonse Camara, who was born in Binani, but he grew up in Katako, and is actually member and drummer of the troupe from Katako, Damas, that is currently used by the troupe. And from Kalitse, but he's a recent carver living in Kamsa, carving small Demba statues, beauty and moral qualities of goodness, that is community. So for them, the two concepts are very related. So the actual Demba, as you can see, is smaller and very lighter, and the proportion not really respected sometimes. And they are evolving towards greater representation of women, ignoring the animalistic reference that were previously envisaged. As for the feminine treatment of the mask, we notice a large number of brass tags.
That's all we'll do. That's half the song. So I say, hey, membero, and you sing, sumun mi. Can we hear that? Sumun mi. And if I go, capio molomwe, you say, haber de tele. Try that? Haber de tele. So I say, hey, membero, sumun mi. Try again. Hey, membero, sumun mi. Hey, membero, sumun mi. The second part, capio molomwe. Haber de tele, okay? Capio malomwe, haber de tele. Capio malomwe, haber de tele. Okay, from the top. E membero, sumuri. Capio malomwe, haber de tele. E membero, sumuri. Capio malomwe, haber de tele. Very good, thank you. And it was taught to me by a man who was at first my translator and research assistant, and later we discovered that he was really a plumber and wasn't really cut out for the work. So I got another research assistant, but he was very instrumental in me learning this song, partly because it's a song about drinking palm wine. And he initiated me into various arts of Baga life, including palm wine. So palm wine and rice, these are the two themes in this song. The song says, if it's palm wine, drink it. If it's rice, put it in the granary of Dimba life. And a song of basic celebration that, as I say, it does not exist in the Dimba songs itself, but a style of call and response that is there, a fairly simple melodic structure that is also there. And we'll find a little bit more out about Dimba songs as we go along here. I am, as Fred mentioned, the ethnomusicologist on the team. My field is interdisciplinary by nature. We pursue the study of music from an anthropological perspective, field research of music as culture. We have roots in comparative musicology, an approach that leaned heavily on historical inquiry. My preparatory work for this project involved a review of the pertinent literature on the Baga, much of which was written by Fred himself and also by Mary Yvonne, screening some of Fred's videos from his fieldwork in the late 80s, and listening to some of his audio recordings from the same time period. My fieldwork was a combination of interviews with elders and current performers, and lessons with practicing musicians in each of 3 villages, Katako, Kawas, and Tolkoch. My documentation responsibilities extended beyond this to acting as second camera for Rebecca and sound recording for much of her filming in these and other villages. We've seen a good example of a Dimba performance on film, presented by Rebecca earlier, and details of the dance as filmed by Miriam. Something that leaps out at the newcomer to this genre is the magnificent dancing drummers. In the footage we saw from Katako, the principal drummers of the village's folkloric troupe are Abdul Moshenge Bangura, Alphonse Camara, and Alifa Fainos Camara. I had the privilege to study with them just a few months ago, and I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge their expert abilities and thank them for their generosity. The woman who leads the dance and singing in Katako is Delphine Bangura, a very talented performer who leads to historical discovery as there are research speak and sing about it. In this paper, I'm presenting a few observations about key musical aspects in this filmed performance that we saw, informed by the voices of my Baga teachers and my research colleagues, in the hope of offering a deeper understanding of Dimba performance, especially the drums and the songs. We saw and heard 2 types of drums on Rebecca's video. All the drummers but one played the sangbe drums, led by Mushenge. Alphonse played a drum known as the papa. The form of the sangbe and its name provide us with some very interesting information. The Malinke people, who comprise a significant portion of the population of Guinea, play a set of 3 wooden drums as bass and accompaniment in the djembe drum orchestra. These 3 low-frequency drums are named in ascending pitch Dunumba, Sangba, and Kenkini. The Malinke Sangba and the Baga Sangbe are essentially identical drums, as you see here. These are drums that were relatively new, and they have been created for the troupe that was just being formed during our visit in Bigori. During a piece of information may add substance to the Baga's oft-repeated claim, the links with the Malinke, mentioned earlier by David, of their origins in the Fouta Djallon region of Guinea, much further inland from current Baga settlements on the coast, where we find many Fulbe, but also Malinke. Sound from the first line, Anon Dante Kam Desire, which translates as, who's entrusted you with sorcery secrets or occult secrets? My own version, we don't have to do the call and response. Ano mandante que desere, ano mandante que desere, anandande lucamo. Ano mandante que desere, ano mandante que desere, anandande lucamo. Tate tinande do manstante que, desir da manchland de mondande lucamo. This is a full version of the song. It would typically be repeated
quickly. Some of the things that were the same and some of the things that were not the same. And 90 and 92. And found this just charming spot, pristine, the way things used to be. And these are women's canoes. The women go out fishing. So, and without knowing it, I had, let's see, the women's canoe park, and then not even thinking about it, just thinking when we visited Bigori or Bugur, how nice the scene was in this oval house, the last oval house to exist among the Baga. This is what all Baga lived in the 1920s, from Conakry all the way up the coast to the Guinea-Bissau border. And thoroughly documented this, measured it, everything, and heard that the man wanted to build a new house and tear it down. I begged him not to tear it down. And when we came this time, It was a big brand new house in its place, concrete block and tin roof. And so of course I berated him and every single house. I heard that a collector had come through and gone through all the Baga villages that were accessible right around the mining town of Kamsar and bought them all up. But fortunately there were quite a few left, and this one I found really beautiful behind someone's house, and I said to them, I wondered if they would be interested in selling this. And generally I don't buy any pot that doesn't have a hole in the bottom that they're not using anymore. But this I just thought was so beautiful. I said, let's just ask her. And she absolutely refused. And she said, no, I grew up with this. My grandmother made this. I was a little girl. I lived with this. And we treasure it as a family treasure. So I was really happy. I was happier because there's so many instances where we see that they don't care so much about the older traditions. Before, houses were heavily painted. It was usually the young men. This happens to be a Susu house, not a Baga, but Baga houses were the same. Colorful paintings, abstract paintings, also a lot of paintings of animals, birds, and so forth, trees. And this time, there wasn't much painting, but there was a lot of scratching and drawing in the walls. And you see what's in the center of this drawing is a helicopter. It's the First Lady's helicopter. It's the only helicopter in the whole country. It belongs to the First Lady, and she comes into the town of Tolkuj about 2 or 3 times a year, flies in her helicopter, lands down like someone from Mars. Great mushrooms. Been since the 1950s a major force, and it is today. And unfortunately, I see here that the bottom is cut off for some strange reason, which at the bottom is all the sacred objects that the Muslim missionary here in 1957 had confiscated from the Baga, including a pair of figures that are now in the Smithsonian. Behind collector, the French dealer, loading up all the objects, buying them from the Muslim missionary. And this is not the woman who took the picture, but the woman who took the picture was another French dealer. And so they were helping finance the Muslim revolution, which continues today. And this picture I took in in Sierra Leone with the Temne in 1979, showing the struggle within, you might say, the jihad between the traditional Muslim on the left, epitomized by the Al-Hajj, someone who's done a pilgrimage to Mecca, and on the right, Ringo, a cowboy that they had seen at that time. So there's this constant struggle within each person, I think. And now a growing campaign by places like Kuwait in building mosques in the village, in all of the villages. So this is getting stronger and stronger. And at the same time, Christianity is getting stronger in some of the villages, such as Katiko, where we worked. The presence of CBG, the factory in the mining town of, mining export town of Kamsar. This picture taken in 1986, I guess, and it's still there, and still a great influence on Baga. And I learned this time that it didn't last, and I learned that almost all of the young built this factory, and they told me exactly how they did it, how they put plastic bags down into the swamps so that the cement wouldn't sink, and how they dredged the harbor. And all the Baga had done, the Baga young men had been all drafted into this because it was placed right down in the Baga village, Kamsar, an original Baga village. So here I'm thinking that, pristine, and yet all the way back in the 60s, there was this enormous influence on the Baga people. It must have been an enormous undertaking for them. In the 1980s, such as Saini Salma here, the father of the carver, George Bangora, that you saw before, I was always, as I said, interested in what it was like before the 1950s, before the Islamic Revolution, before independence, when things changed so dramatically. And I would interview the old men, many of whom were in their 90s, even 100s. And they would talk about the Dumba dance and the ritual and the spiritual significance of it and so forth. And this time, I'm again going right after the old men. This man in his 80s. And what they're talking about this time is how they began in the 1960s to form the dance troops for Preparatory, for the national appropriation of the more ancient traditions, for a theatricalization that we see today. So they're talking about the dance troops now. This was what they did in their youth. So it was a big shock to me. The highest spirits, the most sacred spirits, but I guess I'm not going to get to my, I had some text here that somehow is not appearing here. Some of my notes, I just wanted to see some of my interviews. So I'll just have to recall it for you, where I had interview after interview where I'd get them to talk a little bit about the highest spirit, the most sacred spirit, and then my notes say, Saini went silent, and then I go to the next interview. And we talk a little bit about, well, what did he look like? Well, he had a head like this, and then my next note is Ibrahim went silent. And so sacred traditions, and a terror of them really, a terror of speaking about them. But still, here was an elder in the town of Bugur who had a sacred shrine built into the side of the cotton tree. And this is where they brought the Dumba to be sanctified for the initiating ceremonies of throwing rice on and so on the head and so forth. So these things do exist, and so I was curious about what role these do play in their spiritual life. Is there a spiritual life connected with this? Is his shrine all part of the theatricalization? I don't know. And it's something, the idea of the dance troops goes way back to the 1960s, during the time of the dictator, Preparatory, in which each group was encouraged to, after they had the traditions, the sacred traditions, taken the sacred out of them, then they were to regroup and do them as theater, do the dances as theater, using the same masks and so forth. And here is a dance of the sacred Serpent that never would have been seen outside of very sacred contexts. The dance of the Dumba, when I came in 1990. I'll just go through these. Today, a dancer on the left from an elder who helped to start the dance troops in the 1960s and 70s. Let me just run through these. Something was shocking to me, the prevalence of the dance troops now today, and as the group that carries on whatever traditions, and now wearing all costumes which come straight from the Malinke, these hats and the costumes that they have. In fact, another group in Bugur wearing costumes. Anyone who knows Africa very well can see exactly what these are. This troop was put together very quickly because someone wanted to send a troop from Guinea to Burkina Faso where they're having a festival. And so they quickly put together a dance troupe in Bugur. And then they made costumes, and it's the leader of the dance troupe that decides what costumes they should wear. So they're wearing print fabric that duplicates the kente cloth of Kenya, which is sort of the national symbol of Ghana, the Akan people, the Asante people. And here they are going to represent Guinea in Burkina Faso, looking like Ghanaians. And what are the Ghanaians going to think? And I was frankly horrified at the just confounding of the symbols here. On the left is, or in the center, wearing the fake thing on his cheek, Band-Aid, is Frederick Lamb, my namesake, who was born the day that I left Kataka. His name is Frederick Lamb. He now has a hip-hop group. And the others, especially Rebecca, found this very fascinating and started working on that as a research project. And so, of course, my initial reaction was, oh no, I hate hip-hop. Now the Baga are doing it, and they're doing it in the Baga language. But it was fascinating what Rebecca found out, actually what the words are. They're very sort of establishment kind, they're not, I won't even go into the words that hip-hop uses in the US, but they were giving admonishment to the young people, be good and so forth, and doing the same movements. And so really, because, as Rebecca pointed out, they see the hip-hop from the US, but they can't understand the words. They don't know what hip-hop singers are saying. So I thought that was really fascinating. Sounds in the village have changed so much, and I'm going to have to end up here quickly, but pounding. And in the 4 months that I was there, I finally, the last couple of weeks I was there, actually saw someone pounding rice. Previously, when I was there, this is what you would hear from 6 o'clock in the morning on through the entire day, is this pounding of rice, and almost always 2 people pounding, so you get chicka chick, chicka chick, chicka chick, or you'd have 4 people pounding in the same mortar. And you would hear this constantly, and as Miriam pointed out, this is a rhythm that used to be prevalent, it used to just be pervasive in the village, and now this rhythm is gone. And now you hear the whir of the generator, the machine that mills the rice. So how significant is that, that a whole rhythm is gone? Another sound that you hear, and we heard till midnight, since we lived right next to the video club. I took a picture of this one. I included this picture because I looked out my window one time and I saw a woman carrying a load going past the window, and she was talking on a cell phone. And in every village, you see this, and it was so jarring to see such a traditional image, and she's just talking away on the cell phone in a very remote village. So I'll have to end there, but images of Dumba from the 30s, from 87, when I went into the villages, where the dance troops were not current anymore, and so it was more of a village communal event. And I don't have, again, I wanted to show you the text from my interviews in this, where I'm shocked because this mask was the first Dumba that I saw when I was there in 87, and I assumed that they had had it for a little bit, for a couple of years at least. And in my interviews this time, which I wanted to show you, FL says and so says, they said that Dumba was carved because you came. Somebody told us that there was this American researcher coming, and we carved that Dumba quickly. So I said, oh my God, you mean, and so it was quite an event. So this is sort of the way research went. A lot of shocks for me.